Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Kustak, and welcome to the NBA's offices in Secaucus, New Jersey, where in just a few minutes we will be breaking ties between NBA teams that finished with identical records in the regular season. These ties are being broken to determine the order of selection in the 2017 NBA draft presented by State Farm, which will take place on June 22nd at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, and televised on ESPN. A quick review of how this all works. The 30 NBA teams are divided into two categories, playoff teams and teams that did not make the playoffs. The 14 teams that did not make the playoffs will participate in the 2017 NBA Draft Lottery to determine who gets the first three selections in the 2017 NBA Draft. After the top three selections have been determined, the remaining non-playoff teams will select in reverse order of their regular season records. The NBA Draft Lottery will take place on Tuesday, May 16th in Manhattan and broadcast on ESPN. After all of the teams that miss the playoffs have made their draft selections, then the 16 teams that made the playoffs make their selections in reverse order of their regular season standings, with the team with the most regular season wins getting the final first-round pick in the draft. Now, let's get right to today's tiebreaker process. Tiebreakers for playoff teams with identical regular season records will determine the order of selection for these teams in the 2017 NBA Draft. The tiebreaker for the two-team tie among non-playoff teams will determine the order of selection for these teams in the event that neither team wins one of the top three picks. This season, there are a total of 5 ties to be broken. One tie involves lottery teams, and 4 are among non-lottery teams. Here are the 5 ties. With identical records of 51 and 31, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Los Angeles Clippers, Toronto Raptors, and Utah Jazz. With identical records of 43 and 39, the Atlanta Hawks and Memphis Grizzlies. With identical records of 42 and 40, the Indiana Pacers and Milwaukee Bucks. And with identical records of 41 and 41, the Chicago Bulls and the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, Miami also had a 41 and 41 record, but Miami is a lottery team, so they are not involved in this tiebreaker. The last tie to be broken is among the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New York Knicks with identical records of 31 and 51. To break these ties, I now welcome NBA Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, Kiki Vandeweghe, NBA Vice President of Event Operations, Lou DiSabatino, who will operate the machine. And Denise Pelley, a partner in the accounting firm of Ernst & Young, is here as well to oversee the process. So let's get started. There are 4 ties to be broken between teams that made the playoffs. The first of those is the 4-way tie between the Cleveland Cavaliers, Los Angeles Clippers, Toronto Raptors, and Utah Jazz, currently tied for the 23rd pick. For this 4-way tie, each team will have 2 ping pong balls with its logo on it for the drawing. Each of the team's balls will be placed in the drum and mixed for 20 seconds. The first ball up will represent the first place team. The second ball up will be the second place team. If the second ball up is the same as the first ball up, we'll ignore that ball and draw again for the second place team. We'll repeat this process until all teams have been determined. Now, Cleveland will not be keeping its pick. The Cavaliers traded the pick to Portland on January 6, 2017, in exchange for a future first-round draft pick.
Cleveland. LA Clippers. Toronto. Utah. Cleveland. LA Clippers. Toronto. Utah.
Toronto has the right to receive the Los Angeles Clippers pick via Milwaukee pursuant to the June 25th, 2015 trade involving Greivis Vasquez. However, pursuant to the February 14th, 2017 trade involving Serge Ibaka and Terrence Ross, Toronto will be conveying to Orlando the less favorable of Toronto's own pick, or the Clippers pick.
LA Clippers.
So because the LA Clippers pick is higher, Toronto will receive the 23rd pick in the draft, and the Toronto pick will go to the Orlando Magic.
LA Clippers again.
Because the Los Angeles Clippers have already been selected, we will ignore that ball and select again.
Utah Jazz.
The Utah Jazz retains its own pick, so will select 24th in the 2017 draft.
Toronto Raptors.
Because it is the lower selection, the Toronto pick of the 25th pick in the NBA draft will go to the Orlando Magic, which means that Cleveland Cavaliers will get the 26th pick, but that pick will go to the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, all remaining ties are two-way ties in which each team has 3 ping pong balls with its logo on it. All 3 balls from each team will be placed in the drum. The balls will be mixed for 20 seconds, and the first ball up is the winner of the tiebreaker. The next tie to be broken is a tie between the Atlanta Hawks and Memphis Grizzlies, currently tied for the 19th pick.
Atlanta. Memphis. Atlanta. Memphis. Atlanta. Memphis.
Memphis will not be keeping its pick. The Grizzlies pick will be going to Portland via Denver and Cleveland as part of the February 13th, 2017 trade involving Yusuf Nurkic and Mason Plumlee.
Atlanta Hawks.
So the Atlanta Hawks get the 19th pick in the draft, which means that the 20th pick is the Memphis Grizzlies, which will go to the Portland Trail Blazers. The next tiebreaker involves the Indiana Pacers and Milwaukee Bucks, currently tied for the 17th pick.
Indiana. Milwaukee. Indiana. Milwaukee. Indiana. Milwaukee.
There were no trades involved here. Both the Pacers and the Bucks currently own their respective picks.
Milwaukee Bucks.
So the Milwaukee Bucks will pick 17th in the NBA draft, while the Indiana Pacers receive the 18th pick. The next tiebreaker involves the Chicago Bulls and Portland Trail Blazers, currently tied for the 15th pick.
Chicago. Portland. Chicago. Portland. Chicago. Portland.
Once again, the two teams involved here own their picks. Whichever team wins this tiebreaker will be selecting 15th in the draft.
Portland Trailblazers.
So the Trailblazers select 15th in the draft, while the Chicago Bulls will receive the 16th pick. The final tiebreaker is the tie between the Minnesota Timberwolves and New York Knicks. These teams did not make the playoffs and are eligible for the NBA draft lottery. They are currently tied for the 6th position in the lottery.
Minnesota. New York. Minnesota. New York. Minnesota. New York.
The Timberwolves and the Knicks both own their respective picks. Both teams also have a 53 out of 1,000 chance to move up to the #1 pick. If neither team moves up to the top 3, this tiebreaker will determine which team picks first among the tied teams.
Minnesota Timberwolves.
So the Minnesota Timberwolves will select higher than the New York Knicks if neither team wins one of the top 3 picks in the draft lottery. Well, that will wrap up our coverage of the regular season tiebreaker event. A reminder that the NBA draft lottery will take place on May 16th in Manhattan, while the NBA draft is set for June 22nd in Brooklyn. And now we look forward to a great playoff run with all games airing live on ABC, ESPN, TNT, or NBA TV. I'm Sarah Kustok. Thank you, everyone, for joining.